All right, guys. Thanks for jumping on board another episode of the Coach's Coach and the Wealthy Coach system. I'm here today. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. We're going to do a little bit different. We're just going to have some casual conversation with Eli Delaney, and I'm excited to have him, and we're going to get into his story and what he does and how he helps people. I have done some research on you, Eli, just a little bit. I'm going to tell you this. I'm impressed with what I saw, which is why I'm glad to have you on here today.
Well, that's a good thing. I like hearing that.
That's right. That's right. If I'd have done some research and didn't like, we may have had to reschedule something. But being a coach's coach, being able to help coaches, it is good to have people from outside of just our lane. How other people come in. And that's something we briefly touched on earlier: email marketing, starting conversations, follow up, all of that. And I know we're going to dive deep into that. If this is you watching this now, what I'm going to ask you to do is hit in the comments, ask us some questions. We'll try to chime you in as much as we can. Obviously, we're streaming this live across a couple channels and YouTube and Facebook. And so if we don't see your comment, post it anyway, and then we'll get back to it. I'll personally answer every comment. That's my promise. So one of the things that I'm really excited, Eli, about having you on here, and just to take a moment and to share with my team a little bit of what I found out about you, is that you're seems to be, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but co-founder and leader of Purple Knight Marketing and Marketing University.
Your Marketing University.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And I'm looking at your credentials here, who you've spoke with as far as different associations, and the co-author of Marketing Tidbits, 50 Quick and Easy Ways to Grow Your Business, and Networking Tidbits. Now you're talking to me. I love networking. I love to be able to connect. So we're going to have fun with this conversation. Where are you based out of? And that's one thing my research ended. I didn't see where you're located.
Okay. I'm actually we're in Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So I'm going to jump in because obviously being a coach and working with coaches, coaching I see from a number of different aspects. Number one, that you've got to meet the people. You can't help those that don't know you. You know, obscurity is your biggest enemy. And I think Grant Cardone said it the best, but I've repeated it a million times. If people don't know you, they can't do business with you. So it's finding that person. And then among all the noise, how do they continue to find you? How do you stay, how do you stand out? So do you mind telling me a little bit about your business? And, we're going to just go raw and unedited here, a little bit about you and how you do it.
I mean, let's go back a little bit, because it kind of brings a story of where I am now. My first company was a web and graphic design agency back 25 years ago. Yeah, something right around there. Okay. I kind of getting old. Anyway, so 25 plus years ago, I started my graphic design agency. And the very first thing that I did when I decided that I loved doing it, but the two clients that I had were not going to sustain me, was ending up going to a local chamber of commerce. And by going there, the very first thing that I heard was, you'll get as much out of it as you put into it. And I took that to heart, and I really joined the chamber, got very active with it. And that's actually how I grew my design agency, from myself working out of my dining room all the way up to I ended up opening up an office. I had 5 employees, and we were closing 3 to 5 contracts a week. And it was all through networking. I did no advertising whatsoever. And that's where I really learned the ins and outs of connection, how to meet people, have great conversations, and obviously lead them to the next step, that if you can help them become clients.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. How to become a follow-up rock star. That says a lot right there. Mm-hmm. And turn casual conversations into cash clients. Really interesting. One of the things I was broadcasting at the beginning of this year was never do lunch alone. Mm-hmm. Always have somebody to meet with, and then of course COVID hit. And but the silver lining is we've learned how to network like this. Yeah. And we're learning in different areas. What is a follow-up rock star? If I want to become one, what is that? What is that? What does that mean to you?
So I think about you've heard the phrase, the fortune's in the follow-up, right?
Sure.
I mean, most of us have heard that, but most people are like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But then you meet somebody, and it doesn't matter whether that be face-to-face in a, local chamber of commerce, going to a conference that has 5,000 people, or in an event in the online world, or even a Facebook group. I mean, that's how you and I met, was through a Facebook group.
That's right. Yeah.
And so by doing that, that's the connection. That's how you first meet somebody. But when we go to follow up, what most people do is maybe one message. Nowadays it's, send them a message on Facebook or on LinkedIn or whatever, maybe an email, sometimes a phone call, but usually not, because these wonderful things that we carry in our pockets, they call them a phone. They're great for surfing cat videos, but when you actually go to pick up the phone and make a call, nobody uses them, because all of a sudden this thing that weighs 5 ounces maybe, all of a sudden weighs like 10,000 pounds. But we do that once, maybe twice. So you connect with somebody, next thing you know, you have a good conversation. It's like, we should definitely stay in touch. And then nothing happens. And nothing. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, it's like, oh yeah. You run into them. It's like, oh yeah, we really need to do that. And still nothing happens. Becoming a follow-up rock star is about being systematic about following up with people, building those relationships, so that when they need what you have, you will be top of mind. Now, that does not mean calling them up every other day and saying, hey, I had this cool thing for special, you should buy it today. That's not the case. It's about the relationship. It's about adding value. And I love email. It's great because in today's world, so many people are pitching that email is dead. To be perfectly honest, the reason that they say that is because their emails suck. They're that bad. And nobody's reading them because they're bad. But I have a great example of a guy who we're talking like 3 weeks now, not even, messages me, and he says, hey, Eli, I've been following your stuff and reading your emails for years now. And I wanted to say, first off, thank you so much. You've always given so much value. The second thing is, my son is starting a new business, and I was wondering if maybe you might be able to help me out. And so I ended up having some conversation back and forth via email to figure out, what he was looking for and everything. But on a whim, I went into my CRM system, which is how I track all my clients and all my prospects and everybody I run into. And I realized he came into my system in June of 2010.
Wow.
He became a client back then. And he has followed my stuff, stayed in touch with me ever since. And because I stayed in touch with him, when he had a need, I was the first person he thought of.
That's amazing. So I have been doing email. So obviously as a coach, but we also do it in a ministerial. We've been doing it with Aweber, because Aweber is the only thing I knew back then. And still works great. Still love it, and we still get great open rates. Where I noticed, Eli, and correct me here, because I'm definitely open to correction here. In the beginning, I really made it relational. I talked about my wife. I talked about getting married. I talked about my children that were coming. And then I got into structures and context and content. And I noticed the decline in open rates.
Yep. Yeah.
And I just recently said, how do I restructure this so people know who I am, not just what I have to offer?
Yeah. So. Well, and that's a great example, because what's happened is you're still giving content, which is awesome, because that's great. That's a major thing. But what most people are doing, we're on the business side of it. So I've got a couple of people, love them to death, but every time they turn around, if they email me, I know it's a pitch, period. There's no question about it. Now, what you're doing, you're adding the content, but what happens is that people are still relationship based. They're emotional based. And so mix some stuff in there. Content is awesome. I give a ton of content and I love doing it, but there's got to be something to go along with it. Why are you sharing that bit of content? And if you can put it into a context of a personal story, that'll help. Even just starting off with a very simple, hey, I had some crazy stuff going on this week. I just wanted to let you know I got something cool coming up. but hopefully you had a great week. Here's something that happened to me, just to make it conversational. Like for me, my hobby is archery. And so from an archer standpoint, I'll tell people, hey, I just had a great day at the range today and got to, walk the course and that kind of stuff. Cause I do it all target based. It's all just for fun and relaxation for me. But by sharing that, just that little bit that catches people's attention, because it makes them feel like I'm talking to them, not just spewing data.
And so can a piece of content that way, I think I know the answer, but and I'll give an example, but can a piece of content that way be evergreen? Like that?
Oh, yeah. Story? 100%. So, if you do it right, obviously and this is where the psychology of language comes into play. And that's where my fun spot is. I love working with that.
Same here. We love that.
Yeah, it's like copywriting related stuff, but it's not just copywriting. It's the psychology of things behind it. And so by saying, hey, I thought about this and wanted to share it. Or like the story I told about the client who just came back to me asking that question. Now, as of the time of this recording, this was literally like 3 weeks ago, but I will definitely use that in other content down the road. But it will say, I got to tell you about this time this guy emails me, replying back to one of my emails, and yada, yada, yada.
Gotcha.
There's no time there. And you want to think of that, because if you do it right, you can create a sequence that is designed to consistently give value, but you start at the beginning and you can automate it. And that's where I really have a lot of fun, is actually putting automation into play, because too many people are focusing on, let me write my newsletter. First off, nobody wants a newsletter. What they want to do is they want to get a communication of something of value, something that changed their day one way or another.
That's good. That's good. So what made me think of that, Eli, was taking apart a crib that my 9-year-old, then my 6-year-old, and then one of my twins used. Mm-hmm. And now they're out of it. So 9 years later, I'm taking apart a crib. And I remember writing an email about this. Where was that email?
Yeah.
It was still in the follow-up sequence of AWeber. And talking about, I cried because I didn't follow instructions, and then I got upset. And then the subject line was, did you cry? First name. Mm-hmm. Did you cry? And I talked about how I cried. And I thought, and I looked, and I'm still getting like a 27% open rate on an email written 9 years ago.
Yep.
So I probably need to update my info a little more, but
yeah. But see, those are great examples of what we're talking about here. So I have a client, I've known her for years. She took pictures of me for my business cards, probably 20 years ago. And it was so fun, because I had this one day, I had the sequence. This is my running joke is I have a campaign that runs for 3 years, meaning if you were to get on my list today and I were to go outside and get hit by a bus, I'd still sell you stuff for 3 more years. Okay.
I like that.
And that grabs people's attention, both in a horrified and amazed situation all at the same time. But the fact that you can put something in place like that is so powerful. And this is why, is because this gal had emailed me. She replied back to this email that I sent out. And all I did was I had recommended a book. It was The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. Okay. I'm sure you've read that book probably multiple times. Yep. And this email was talking about this book and the impact it made on me and why I loved it so much. And then there was a link so she could go grab it off of Amazon. I get this email and it says, hey, Eli, thank you so much. I've really been struggling. Business has been really slow, and I was about ready just to give it up and go get a job. And I got this email. I picked up The Greatest Salesman this weekend, read it, and I feel totally changed. I feel so much better, and I'm ready to rock and roll. I get this and I read this, and I'm thinking about the fact that I basically helped save her business, which to me means a lot, because especially not just that I helped save her business, but I know how long she's worked in this business.
Yeah.
And to help make that impact is pretty amazing. But then the stopping point that really clicked was, oh yeah, and I wrote that email 6 years ago.
Wow. Absolutely.
And that's what makes a difference.
I think that says a lot. And Eli, back to the follow up Rockstar and turning casual connections into cash clients. Same reason we do podcasts. Same reason we do YouTube videos. We want this content to be as evergreen as possible.
Yeah.
But there's also just content, and as you said earlier, turning it into connections. Obviously, email works, and I don't think email is going away. It's just a reality.
Yeah.
Sure, we have Facebook Messenger and we have everything else, but we still have email. What is a key? If I met someone today, what would be one key? If I wanted to connect with this person, I work with a lot of real estate transactions and so forth. I work with coaches. How do I take a business card? Nice to meet you. I enjoyed coffee with you today, which actually I had coffee with a realtor today. How do you turn that into a connection?
Okay. So you first meet somebody, you had the coffee, it was great. Number one, as quickly as possible, follow up with it was great having coffee with you today. I really had a great time.
Personal thank you card.
Yeah. And you can do this as an actual thank you card. You could do this as a message on Facebook. You could do this as an email. Doesn't matter which. I like to use email for me, because I use email so much, that is setting the stage. And then I will go through, and if I'm not already connected to them in the social media world, I will send a message to them as well and say, hey, I just emailed you, but I wanted to make sure we got connected here on Facebook. Thank you again for coffee. Really enjoyed the conversation, and something to that effect. But then here's the magic of making this happen, because again, that's one connection. Now, if you think about this, people in sales, so somebody who qualifies themselves as salesman, quote, saleswoman, whichever way you want to go, they generally will follow up 3 times. But we know the stats, and where the stats really came from, we're not really sure, but the principle applies no matter what, of it takes between 6 and 12 touches of a prospect before they make a buying decision. Okay. And that is because reality is they have to know, like, and trust you. Okay. Know, like, and trust. That's also something we've all heard. But those 3 words come in a very specific order for a very specific reason. They get to know you first. Okay. When they get to know you, then they can decide if they like you. And if they like you, then you're taking them to the trust. Okay. Now, those are in a very specific order for a very specific reason. And the reality is, unless you're an attorney or a doctor, they're the only 2 that can really get away with not following those 3 rules.
That's true. That's true.
You know, we might know them and we might trust them. Most of the time, we're not so sure we like them or not, right? Okay. So by doing this, the first conversation is building that know factor. And by following up, you're building the like factor. Now, what happens in a week if you send a message that says, hey, by the way, I don't know if you've read this yet, but if you haven't picked up The Go-Giver by Bob Berg, this is an amazing book. This is why I liked it so much. Here's a link. Check it out and let me know what you think. Okay. Oh. Yeah, it's a great book, by the way. If anybody hasn't read it, go pick it up and read it. Bob is an awesome guy too. I've interviewed him for my show years ago. But if you just out of the blue send that email to somebody, do you think that they're going to appreciate it?
Absolutely.
Do you think they're going to see value in it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it sound like I'm trying to sell them anything?
No.
Not at all. So that's the key. Because it's not about the sale. It's about being relevant and adding value to their lives. Because you've already sat down and had coffee with them. They know what you do. You don't need to pitch that.
So Eli, from that point, would you place them into a follow-up sequence of maybe 6 months, 6 years? Okay.
I am a big fan of putting them into a sequence that is something to that effect. Now, these are still connections, not prospects. Mm-hmm. So there is a difference between the 2. A prospect says, I am interested in your stuff. Tell me more.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's a difference there. Now, there's a way to take this and start with adding value. First off, no matter where somebody is in your system, whether they are a connection, a prospect, a client, or referral partner, if I were to send you and you were any of those categories, if I were going to send you the recommendation of a book, you're going to see value in it. So that part is irrelevant to where that person fits into your ecoculture. But if somebody's a connection, they haven't said they definitely want your stuff yet. So you got to be adding value.
Right.
And the pitch is literally as soft as you can get it, but still say, hey, by the way, I've got this really cool webinar I'm doing. I would love it if you would check it out. Let me know what you think.
Sure. Good.
If they're interested, they'll go sign up, check it out. And guess what? Now they've become a prospect because they add the interest in checking it out for you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. One thing I've added, Eli, and love your, again, any feedback you have here for our guests. And guys, if you're just checking us out, again, EliDelaney.com. One of the things I picked up was from Todd Brown. Actually, I picked up his one of his courses, and I go to thebookdepot.com and I buy these books in bulk. So we're getting hardcover books for $1.25. That's one thing I've done a lot recently, like with the person I met today, is if I've got their mailing address, and it's not hard to get it, or just ask them for it, is I'm mailing them a book. So it's a hardcover $20 looking book that I paid $1.25 plus shipping. That has been, again, no sales pitch. That has been really good. And there was a season there, and I've taught some of my coaches this. If I'm on a strategy call with someone and they don't buy, but they're so close. They're like, I think, I'm so close. I buy copies of The Little Engine That Could. And I send them that with a little Post-it note going, the little train thought he could, and he could, and so can you. Let's go. Let's push past this.
Nice.
And
I love it.
Tens of thousands of dollars worth of coaching from this little book because they're like, nobody else is doing this. Where I probably need to expand is the follow-up, extended after that. But man, you're so right on, and I'm so glad you're here teaching us this because people need to know how to connect. Outside of email, and obviously I know there's social media. What's another strategy that you like to use to share to connect with people? Okay.
So one of my favorite ones to do, and this will go back to the cool little box that we serve cat videos on, is now they've recently changed it, and it's kind of annoying. You have to have your computer as well as when you go to do this, but you can see when people's birthdays are on Facebook, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now they recently updated the app on the phone. Hopefully they will change this soon. But you can't find that as easily on the phone as you used to be able to.
I noticed that. Yeah.
Okay. So, but here's the thing. Is most people, when they see birthdays, they go to their wall and they basically just post a, happy birthday, congratulations, or whatever. Facebook even does the autofill options now. So it gives you like 3 suggestions and you just hit a button and then you're done. Those are great, except for for me, I literally get 1,000 of those on my birthday.
True.
But what if you stopped and you can do this on your phone and actually recorded a quick little video just saying, hey there, Facebook told me it was your birthday. Just want to pop in, say happy birthday. Hopefully you're having an amazing day. Let's catch up sometime next week.
I have taught that to real estate agents for the last few years, and I'm glad somebody else told me that it's a good idea because I think it's a great idea.
What's really funny is I get those, and as a speaker, I do a lot of times where I'll speak from stage and I'll teach that. But what I'll do is I'll actually pull them up ahead of time and I'll do it right there. And then I turn around so everybody in the audience can say happy birthday at once, and they love it. And the funny thing about it is that, how many of those I get?
Zero.
Absolutely. Zero, which means nobody's doing it. So you saying that you're doing it and me saying that I'm doing it, that's 2 of us. For everybody else listening to this right now, there's a lot of room for that. And if you do that, you will make a killer impression. They will never forget that from you.
And I do it pretty regular, but not every day. So there's days I'm missing it.
Yeah. And that's fine if you miss it. I have days where I do that too, where I miss it. But the thing is that you don't the more you do it, the better. If you miss some, you miss some. We're human beings. We're going to drop the ball. That's why we automate everything that we can do. But by doing the ones you can, you just made an impact with those people. And literally, I mean, it doesn't even let you record more than 15 seconds.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's got to be quick.
Another thing I've done in taught realtors and insurance agents is, your contact list on your phone is your gold.
Mm-hmm.
And to really just go through in 3 a day, hit the record, text, record, and again, keep it short. Mm-hmm. Hey, I was going through my phone, Eli. Saw you, thought about you. Hope all is doing well. Hit me up sometime. I was going through my phone because this is my part of my daily activity. But for that person, it's just like you said, unbelievable. I don't get those.
Yeah.
So if you give them, and then I think the next question I have for you, because it's really great to have a contact that we can build this conversation with, but what is your favorite way of building a contact database? And I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Larry Kendall wrote Ninja Selling, which a lot of realtors are following. The beauty of that, one thing I got out of the course in the book was, if you have 50 people in your contact list, your sphere of influence that you're continuously working, you'll make about $50,000 a year. If you have 100, you'll make about $100,000 a year. So you've got to build that list and keep in touch with them if you want to raise. How do you recommend somebody not only meet people, meet them so we can begin, meet cool people, your hashtag. How do you meet people that you can begin to bring into your world? What's one of the best outside of networking? I love networking events.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that with everything that's happened with COVID, the world changing, and we're not meeting in person as well, a lot of people got hit really hard. And I come from the speaking world. So I was traveling all over the place, speaking at events all over the country. And that came to a stop, like within a 1 month period. I had from 8 to 0, right? And a lot of people that were, my peers all had that same thing. It's like, okay, now their business completely shut down. But when I moved up here to Portland, I basically stepped out of that entire world for 6 years. And for 6 years, I didn't go anywhere. And then a friend of mine convinced me to get out of Portland. Portland is a very beautiful place in itself, the northwest. There's trees everywhere. There's hiking trails like 10 minutes away from me. I'm 15 minutes from the second largest waterfall in the country. You really don't want to go anywhere else once you come into something like that, right? Yeah. But she convinced me to get back out there. And I did realize what I missed, but I realized that in 6 years, I hadn't really gone to any networking events. I hadn't traveled anywhere. And the biggest thing was my connections were online. They were from a couple of different things. Number one, if you want to connect with other people, get on podcasts, okay? Get connected with those people. Host your own podcast. This is one of the best ways to make connections. If there's somebody you want to meet, especially it's in your industry, get them on your show. That's a great way to do it. But then also, if you're on Facebook, and I use Facebook as an example, doesn't matter what platform you're on, but Facebook's a great example of this. Get into Facebook groups that are related to your industry or your audience. Your audience are going to be in that group. Yeah. And when people ask questions, whether it's your product or not, ask or answer the questions. Take the time to stop and say, hey there, I saw your question on XYZ, and I just wanted to give you, here's my experience. So great example of this. I had somebody who, the funny thing is this person posted in the group. We did not know each other in any way, shape, or form. And he asked a question. He said, I'm considering switching over to Infusionsoft. Can you guys tell me what you think about it? What are your pros? What are the cons? Now, I'm an Infusionsoft user. We've actually been with them for over 12 years. So we know it better than most of their staff does. Matter of fact, we have longevity over most of their staff. And he got everything from people talking about how horrible it is to people saying it's awesome. Give me a call and we'll get you set up, because they were basically reps for us, so they get a commission off of it, right? But there was no meat to any of the answers, and that was driving me nuts, because I'm like, nobody actually answered his question. They either said it's horrible or it's great. Buy from me. That was it. And so I stopped and I said, okay, here's the deal. First off, we've been with them for over 12 years. I laid that out. And at the time, it wasn't that long. We've been with them over 12 years now. But back then, I think it was 8 years or something like that. And so we've been with him for this long. These are the things that, that you want to be aware of. Don't try to do it all on your own. Hire somebody at first to help you get things set up before you try to learn it, yada, yada, yada. And I gave him a bunch of stuff. And then I said, and here's why we love it so much. And I would basically list that out. So I gave him a bunch of pros, a bunch of cons, and this was a good size post. And at the end, I said, I would be happy to jump on a Zoom call with you and just chat, answer any other questions you have. Just shoot me a message. I'm happy to help you out. So he replies back, says, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Then he got bombarded by a whole bunch of other people with, yes, no, yada, yada, but nothing important. And then like 2 weeks later, I get a message from him. It says, hey, Eli, I don't know if you remember me, but I had asked about Infusionsoft and you gave me an awesome answer. First off, I want to say thank you so much for such a detailed answer and taking the time. I'm wondering if you would still be open for that call. I was like, yeah, sure. So we jumped on a call, answered some more questions for him. And lo and behold, we are now, I'm guesstimating because I don't remember exactly how many years it is, but he has been with us probably 4 to 5 years now.
That's absolutely amazing.
And he is still a client of ours.
So comment marketing, which is something all of my coaches know we talk about.
And by the way, it doesn't have to be
with context and more than
and it doesn't have to be about your stuff. I've had people ask questions about what backup software they use, or what video, what webcam do they use, or what microphone do I use? And they're asking the question because they're trying to get answers, but people giving one-word answers doesn't really help. People need the context. And by you taking the time to write something and actually put some time into it, and we're not talking a lot of time, we're talking maybe 5 minutes. That by you doing that, all of a sudden, they're going to pay more attention to you because you took that time, and you're building good karma.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're establishing credibility in multiple areas. So a number of years ago, a gentleman named Dave, and he's probably watching this, said, hey, Wayne, your Facebook graphic stinks. If you'll give me 30 minutes, I'll fix it. He fixed it. Okay. Then he come back, he said, do you want to hop on a call? And I can share with you some tips on Facebook. This is probably 8 years ago. And I was like, yeah, sure. Hopped on a call. I'm waiting for the sales pitch.
Right.
And I've got my MasterCard ready because I know that. But it was none. He said, I serve one person a day. You're my person.
Cool.
And he's built a very big business. I've never spent $1 with him, but I share his content. I talk a lot about him. And as you said, karma. Eli, I could talk to you for hours. You've really helped. I mean, I think the key here for everybody to grab a hold of is you've got to make that connection. It's really interesting. I didn't know we were going to be talking on this lamp. I'm doing a coaching call tonight at 9, and I'm actually teaching on 6 levels of communication. Cool. So from my friend Tom Schroeder's book, and we're going to be teaching out of that. But anyway, but having that connection and then building it, and I'm glad you said that about email, because I get so many coaches go, I don't want to do email. I just want to do Facebook Messenger. I want to do mini chat. I want to do email is email, and it's very solid.
So here's the thing with that is that first off, platforms come and go. The biggest thing to keep in mind, though, is that Facebook, if you want to use Messenger and ManyChat, great software. I use ManyChat with my own stuff. I do Facebook messaging. I spend more time on messenger.com, which, by the way, if you don't know, this is phenomenal, because you can go to messenger.com and that way you get your Facebook messages, but you don't have to deal with all the other Facebook garbage that's going on out there.
I have a friend who recommended the very same thing.
Yeah, one of the best things, and it's one of the most secret things out there, which is really funny. But I have no less than 20 conversations on Facebook a day from different people, whether I ask a question, answer a question, reach out to somebody and says, hey, by the way, here's something I just noticed that might help you out, whatever. It doesn't matter what the conversation is. But at the end of the day, those conversations are amazing, but Facebook changes their rules all the time. They could shut me down. They could shut down themselves. They could all of a sudden change it to where, no, that's not free anymore. You got to pay $100 a month.
Sure.
There's a lot of different options out there. I have no control over that page, and any social media is that way. Doesn't matter if it's Instagram, LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn made a lot of changes after Microsoft bought them, and you don't have control over any of that stuff.
That's true. Very true.
But your email list, you're still, most of the time, you're going to be using a third-party software, but it is still your list. You can export that list. You can export all your conversations.
And the beautiful part, I tell people today, an email list, an email is more important than ever because of Facebook retargeting.
Yes.
Take that email address, stick it into a Facebook custom campaign, and 80% of them are going to find that Facebook user, and now you're being seen there as well.
Yes.
And so, Eli, I want to say thank you. You've given a lot of value today. You've definitely, I think, motivated us to continue moving on and to looking for the next right connection. And what I hear from you, Eli, and love is make the connection for the right reason, and the business will take care of itself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer of you can get anything you want by the connections that you have, the people that you meet, the people that you know. By treating them right, they will help you. You can get anywhere you want in business just by having the right connections. And that's all there is to it.
Will help.
Definitely.
So EliDelaney.com, and you've got connectwitheli.com. Is there any other best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, actually connectwitheli.com, and it's on here, but ELY. That's a really important thing because people actually spell it the other way sometimes.
On our podcast listening, it's ELI. I mean, ELY, not ELI.
ELY, yes. So connectwitheli.com. You can connect with me to all my social media connections right there. And that's a good way to reach out to me. I do a lot on Facebook. I don't do as much on LinkedIn or Twitter, but they're there. But most importantly, if this resonated and you wanted to just have a chat, I totally love to meet cool people, as the hashtag says. So there is a spot right there, bottom right-hand corner. There's a star that says, let's chat. Click on that and book a call with me. This is purely no pitch. This is not to get you. I mean, if the conversation leads to working together, awesome, but that's not what it's about. It's about finding out about you. What are you up to? How can I potentially help you? Because I love doing that. I love having fun with that. And after that, what happens next is what happens next. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when or where or how. As long as we can help each other out, that's all that matters.
Eli, I appreciate that more than you know, and I tell people the same thing. If get on a call with us, I'm gonna give you an aha moment somewhere in the business call.
Yep.
Other than that, we're gonna have a great connection. I met with someone today over a coffee, and I said, "Hey, if this ends at coffee, we had a great coffee." And now email follow up. But if we never do business together, we had a good cup of coffee.
Yep.
Eli, so connect with Eli with a y.com. If you're listening to this on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, it'll be in the show notes. If you're watching this with video, click on the notes below. Eli, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Wayne. I had a blast with it. This is a lot of fun. And, anything that I can do to help you out, reach out and let me know anytime.
Hit the share button. That's all we're asking for. Get us out there to let your people know. Hey, guys, for those who are following us, again, howtosellyourcoaching.com, howtosellcoaching.com. You can go to either one. But if you go to howtosellcoaching.com, it's going to give you a little bit about who we are at the Wealthy Coach Program. And then all you have to do is click a button, as he said, watch the case study, and then book a call with us. Same thing. We'll take 10, 20, 30 minutes. We'll talk. We'll hear what you're doing as a coach, consultant, public speaker, course creator. If we can help you, we're going to bring you the goods. If we can't help you, then you're going to be on our mailing list for 3+ years, thanks to Eli, and we'll just continue to bring content for free. But I do appreciate all of the listeners for jumping on. So jump over to howtosellcoaching.com. And if you, hey, Wayne, I just want to talk with you. You're so handsome, so nice, so awesome. Let's just go through, then jump right over. I had to say that, right? To callwithwayne.com, and you'll just bypass the case study and go right to a phone call. Eli, as always, thank you. I will see you on Facebook. I'll see you online, and I do appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much, man. It was a